My name's Stephen Drew Freeburne. You know, you've heard the old saying, preacher's kid, they're the worst, right? I mean, that is kind of true sometimes. I hated it for when I was younger. You know, I was like, my dad's the youth pastor, then he was this pastor, and then he was that, but he wasn't always in ministry. When God is calling you to leadership, you kind of want to just be like, are you sure you got the right guy, God? Are you sure you know what you're doing? Time and time again, I've been put in the position that I would never have picked for myself. And I think what it comes down to is that God uses our weaknesses because He gets more glory that way. Kind of growing up in the ministry, you know, sometimes it can lose a little bit of its authenticity until you enter some of those dark valleys. And if you're in ministry and you haven't been through a dark valley, just hold on. God's going to take you through one. That's kind of part of my story. I like to say there's 3 or 4 chapters to my life and God's providence in my life. And I'd say it's somewhere in between chapter 3 and 4, but you know, you guys have to get the book someday. I work for the 1520 Coalition. Been working since about 2016, officially in 2018. I went on a missions trip. God was really calling me to the mission field in Albania. I spent about 5 years there, learning the culture and the language, the people. Had some major failures, some major successes. You know, God really taught me a lot during that time. And I've been in soul care, biblical soul care through the coalition. I believe God is always preparing us for the next thing. So that's one thing I learned on the mission field, is that God is going to prepare you for the next ministry or work that He's set out there for you to do. Like He says, His Word says in Ephesians 2:10, crafted in His image and Christ Jesus, and that we would set out to do the good works prepared before us to do. But we also have a ministry called Biblical Soul Care, which, you know, believe it or not, people in churches and out of churches, families, they have problems. They need counseling. Why is it important to have soul care? It's critical to your spiritual, mental health to have somebody that you can really just bare your all to. You know, that you can tell the things that are inside your heart that you just can't share with even your pastor or your close friends. So having a soul care provider will allow you to change and grow. Or maybe it's discipleship. Maybe God is discipling you as we all learn to become more Christ-like. Soul care really shows us how to do that. So as I was out there sharing the gospel with people, Kosovo and Albania are close together. They both speak the same language. The first 2 years kind of really getting my feet wet, I spent in Albania learning the language, and then when we moved to Kosovo, after I met my wife and we got married, we moved to Kosovo. And that was where the real ministry began. Kosovo is a very tough place. 99% of people are very Muslim. I've heard Kosovo called the graveyard of missionaries, the graveyard of church plants. It's where church plants go to die. It's one of the greatest needs in that region of the world. There's a darkness. There's a darkness that covers the land there that you just have to. You'll sense it if you go. So sharing Jesus with people there is what I was sent there to do. And after some time there, you know, God called me back to the United States to continue working for the coalition in a different capacity. The coalition's grown a lot. There's a lot of need A lot of the administrative things were falling on the hands of the pastors and the counselors. And so now I take care of those things. I kind of act as a liaison between the American side, supporters, and the senders and the goers over there in Albania and Kosovo. It helps to know the culture, to know the language. My wife is also Albanian, so I live with one. God's really grown me a lot in these last 6 or 7 years. So that all wouldn't be possible without the 1520 Coalition and their mission. International missions is tough, physically, emotionally, mentally. Isaiah 48:10 says, "Look, I have refined you, but not as silver. I have tested you in the furnace of affliction." Without these struggles, we would not be prepared to do those handiworks that God has prepared for us. The 1520 Coalition is spreading the gospel internationally through church planting and by coming alongside believers and non-believers alike in biblical soul care for people struggling with life's most difficult circumstances. Presently, 40% of all the soul care revenue goes directly to church planting. Just like in the story of Joseph, what man meant for evil, God can use for good. Would you join us on this mission? Please prayerfully consider giving to this ministry financially or going on a mission trip. Nothing will change your life quite like a mission trip.